The hospital was a cold, sterile place, its fluorescent lights humming above the empty corridors. It had been years since anyone had complained about strange sounds or unusual occurrences. But that all changed the night Mr. Aldridge was admitted. He was an older man, gaunt and pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to stare right through anyone who dared meet his gaze. The nurses whispered among themselves about the peculiar way he moved, always seeming restless even while lying in bed. At first it was nothing overt, just small, sound, slow moans that drifted from his room late at night. The night staff assumed it was merely the sound of a sick man in pain, until one nurse, Carla, reported hearing a scream that sounded like a child being torn apart. She ran to his room, only to find him lying in bed, eyes closed, breathing shallow. And even as if nothing had happened, she told the others. But when they checked, nothing was amiss. By the third night, every nurse had experienced it. Each time someone entered his room, he was silent, calm, even friendly. His lips would twitch in what looked like a nervous smile. But the moment they turned their backs, screams erupted, echoing through the halls. The sounds were terrible, more than human blood-curdling, inhuman. Shrieks that seemed to twist the air itself. Carla began keeping a log, noting the exact moments the screams happened, and the pattern was clear. He screamed only when no one was watching. Doctors dismissed it as a psychological condition or a result of delirium. But Carla was not convinced. She decided to spend an entire night outside his door, hidden behind the corner, listening. The clock ticked past midnight, past 1, past 2. The hospital was silent except for the distant hum of machines and the faint sound of ventilation fans. Suddenly, the screaming began, not soft this time, but shrill and terrifying. As if something inside him was clawing to escape, Carla froze. Heart hammering, eyes wide, the sound tore through her. A pain so visceral it felt like her own bones were screaming. She wanted to run, to get someone, but fear held her in place. The screams lasted exactly 3 minutes and 22 seconds, then stopped, leaving an eerie silence that felt heavier than the screams themselves. When Carla peeked around the corner, Mr. Aldridge was asleep, calm, the faintest smile playing on his lips. Carla reported the incidents to Dr. Hammond, a middle-aged man. With a clinical detachment that bordered on coldness, he took her concerns seriously enough to walk to Mr. Aldridge's room himself. The patient looked up at him and whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Dr. Hammond laughed nervously and left. But that night, the screams started again, this time louder, more urgent, the sound of metal bending, of walls groaning, of something moving beneath the bed filled the room, determined to uncover the truth. Carla and Dr. Hammond set up a hidden camera outside his room. The next morning, they reviewed the footage, and what they saw chilled them. In the recording, Mr. Aldridge sat in bed, eyes closed, silent, then his mouth opened impossibly wide, and the sound of screaming poured from him. Yet no motion of his jaw was visible. It was as if the sound came from somewhere else entirely. The screams seemed to warp the air, and faint shadows danced along the walls, shadows that twisted unnaturally. The doctors debated, theories ranging from schizophrenia to possession. But nothing fit. They decided to sedate him to prevent further episodes. That night, the sedatives were administered. And at first, it seemed to work. Mr. Aldridge's body relaxed, breathing steady, eyes half-lidded. Yet in the early hours, the screams returned, muffled but no less horrifying, coming from inside his chest. Or maybe the walls themselves, when the nurses rushed in. He lay still, eyes closed, perfectly calm. As if nothing had happened, Carla noticed something new that night. Something she hadn't seen before. His hands twitched violently under the sheets. Long, thin shadows slipping from his fingers and crawling along the floor. The shadows merged into shapes she could not comprehend. And in the corner of the room, a figure emerged, tall, dark, faceless, staring directly at her through the camera lens. She screamed, and the figure vanished, leaving only Mr. Aldridge. Smiling faintly, the next morning, Mr. Aldridge asked too. Speak with Carla alone. She entered the room cautiously, heart racing, and he whispered, "Do you hear them?" "They are inside me." His eyes were frantic, wild, but also sad. "I didn't want this," he murmured. "They find me when no one is watching. They live in my screams." Carla asked who they were, but he shook his head, terrified. "I can't name them, or they will come for you too." He begged her to leave, to never stay alone in the hospital at night. But curiosity gnawed at Carla. She promised to help, and he hesitated, then said, "If you want to see them, wait until the stroke of 3. Stand when no light can touch you." That night, Carla followed his instructions. Hiding behind a stack of empty gurneys, lights dimmed to shadows. At exactly 3, the temperature dropped, her breath forming mist in the air. The screaming began, first low, distant, then escalating into a cacophony of every horror she could imagine. Shapes formed in the shadows, twisted, skeletal, some crawling, some flying, all staring directly at her. Their eyes burned with a hunger that made her soul ache. And at the center, she saw him, Mr. Aldridge, mouth open in a silent scream, yet the sound was deafening, emanating from all directions at once. The shadows spoke without words, pressing into her mind, showing visions of past victims, of hospital staff who had disappeared quietly over decades. They showed her the reason, the terrible truth. Mr. Aldridge was a vessel, a bridge between their world and ours, bound to scream for eternity. Each time no one watched, he became the conduit for their terror, and now that she had witnessed it, they had noticed her. Carla tried to run, but the shadows blocked every exit. The screaming reached a crescendo. Her ears bleeding, vision blurred. It felt as though the walls themselves were alive, pressing in, suffocating her. She could see herself in the shadows, screaming, trapped, becoming one with them. Then a voice, Mr. Aldrich's weak, trembling, reached her mind. "Run, or they will claim you too." With every ounce of strength, she dove toward the exit, the shapes lashing at her, clawing, screaming. She burst into the hallway, gasping for air. The hospital was eerily quiet. Fluorescent lights flickering. No one else was there. The doors slammed shut behind her, yet she could hear faint whispers in her ears, calling her name, pleading, mocking. She never returned to that hospital, but every night since, she wakes up screaming, alone in her room, and in the dark corners of her bedroom. She can feel them watching, waiting for the moment she is not looking. For Mr. Aldridge's screams never truly end. They only move on, seeking the next vessel.